Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, depending on which part of this beautiful country that you're in. We took a moment there to recognize that it is 11 a.m. Alberta time, or just after 11 a.m. Alberta time. So that was our moment of silence here in Alberta as we remember those who fought for our freedoms, both both in the wars prior in the world wars, but continuing around the world. We have Canadian troops deployed to Latvia right now and other regions. And we just want to honor them and thank them for their service. And I think the best thing that we can do to appreciate their service is to, in our own small ways, defend the Canadian ideals of liberty. And so I think we do that in our small way here at Rebel News a little bit every single day. Joining me today is my friend Alexa Lavoie on the Rebel News Roundup live stream. Alexa, how's it going?
I'm pretty good, and you?
Good. You know, it was a busy weekend at the company. The news never stops, especially if we've got David Menzies deployed out into the world. We'll get to that in a second here. I'm just catching up to myself here with the live stream schedule. Do we have that yet? Yes, we do. Okay. Before we move on, I saw this video this morning, and if you are not from the prairies, or maybe if you're not from a farming sort of background, maybe you don't pay attention to somebody called Quick Dick, but he is a social media farmer in Saskatchewan. He's a real life farmer, but he's on social media a lot. And he did this video this morning, and I think I thought it was sort of perfect because you're going to hear a lot of fancy people honoring our soldiers today, but I think it's really important. I think just everyday Canadians, I think, probably feel this way. Our politicians generally don't speak to us. They treat our soldiers like garbage until there's a photo opportunity or a special day to remember them. And I don't think that's who we are as Canadians. So let's hear from our friend, the farmer.
They went. They went from their farms. They went from their homes, from their families and those that they loved. They went on trains. They went on trucks. They went in boats and in planes up above. They went without pause, without hesitation, and for freedom were ready to fight. They went not for fame. They went not for glory. They went because they knew it was right. They went to the Somme, Passchendaele, Vimy, Dieppe, the North Atlantic Sea, to Juneau, Korea, Kosovo, Afghanistan. They went not for them, but for you and me. They went to defend those who couldn't for themselves, and they went with their flag on their sleeve. They went with bravery, they went with honor, and they went full well knowing that once they got there, they may never leave. So on the 11th day of the 11th month, when the 11th hour on the clock face is turned, take a moment in silence and honor those that went and honor those that never returned.
So that his name is, well, his stage name is Quick Dick McDick. If you don't know him, maybe you don't know him in other parts of the country. We know him out here on the prairies, but his name is Dixon DeLorme. He's a real life farmer and a comedian, but with a very serious message there. And I think a good one, just a regular guy saying why we should honor the fallen. Yeah, so that's him there. Give him a follow. He is just a good old Saskatchewan boy. Now, let's go to Justin Trudeau. What does Justin Trudeau have to say? What does he say? He says, oh, I guess this is his second post of the day. What was his first post of the day?
Why do you search for that? I'm just going to take a sip of look.
Oh, did you get one finally? Good.
For everyone who want one, it's at ribbonnewsstore.com, and you don't want to not have it at home with like the ribbon news the other side.
Yeah,
it's a good gift for Christmas.
It is a great gift. So Justin Trudeau tweeted out today, throughout history, the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces have kept our country safe. Some returned home from the battlefield and were never the same. Others never returned at all. It's a debt we can never repay and one we will never forget. And then I think a little later he tweeted just randomly, lest we forget, or what, did he actually tweet it at the right time? Pretty close to the right time. So just before 11 a.m. But he's getting trolled pretty hard in the comments by soldiers, but also advocates for our armed forces. So our friend Marty up north, he tweeted the video of Brock Blazchuk. Brock Blazchuk is an Alberta soldier, PPCLI, injured in Afghanistan. And he's the soldier that Justin Trudeau told him as he's standing there on wounded legs that he was asking for more than Justin Trudeau could give him. And then Tom Marazzo points out that Chris Deering was a wounded veteran, served in Afghanistan. He was blown up in Afghanistan and two of his friends were killed in the very same attack. And Chris was beaten by the cops in Ottawa as part of the Freedom Convoy. So a lot of them were saying like, yeah, is this the debt you're talking about? This is how you treat our soldiers. Yeah, anyway, I'll
because I remember during the convoy, the amount of veterans that was standing there for basic freedom and to protect Canadian and all the middle like wage Canadian who just wanted to have their basic freedom, and they got beaten up and pushed away, and that was pretty heartbreaking to see what they did.
Yeah, we all saw what the Justin Trudeau apparatus did to James Topp and how they treated him for standing up for freedom, the freedom that he fought for. He walked across the country for freedom, to bring attention to the plight of civil liberties in this country. And he got in trouble for wearing the uniform that he earned. Just absolutely outrageous. But
don't forget also the veteran woman that we fought with along with her, because she had been offered maid instead of more services.
Oh, by the way, I've got a quick, you know what? A good news story on a somber day. I've got a quick update on Christine Gauthier. So Christine was the veteran who was offered maid instead of the chairlift that she needed. And I am happy to tell all of the Rebel News universe that construction has started on her chairlift. Not thanks to the federal government, who continues to rag the puck. Christine's health became so poor because she dragged herself up and down the stairs that she had to move to Florida to rehab. But a veterans organization, I'll dig it up here. I just have to go poking around for it. But now that you've reminded me, Christine Gauthier, the construction has started on her wheelchair lift in her house, thanks to a veterans charity. Nothing to do with Justin Trudeau whatsoever. Sorry, I'll dig that up if you want to talk about something while I look for that. And I can tell you exactly the charity, because then people might want to help that charity because they're actually doing the work that the government wouldn't.
It's pretty sad when you look at that. And when she was explaining the story, by the way, if you didn't watch the Sheila report, I did it in French for my part. I think it's really important that people know how our veterans are being treated by our current government. And I think it's really important also, like, to show the charity who helped her, because when you look at that, it was everywhere in the media. Her story were everywhere, and she didn't receive more help afterwards. Usually, like, when there is controversial media attention, suddenly the government will rise up and do more, but it wasn't the case.
Yeah. Olivia, I found that for you. I popped it in. My friend Mark Meinke, he's a veteran. He runs, he's the creator and host of Operation Tango Romeo. It's the trauma recovery podcast. He is in our documentary Made, The Dark Side of Canadian Compassion. He was one of the whistleblowers on veterans being offered maid, and he really led the charge to help Christine. And if you can see there, Olivia, I dropped Blake Richards. He's the MP for the region, the Conservative MP, announcing that Christine is getting her wheelchair lift. And it's Renos for Heroes is the veterans charity that helps veterans who have mobility issues stay in their homes longer, related to their service-related injuries. So it's Renos for Heroes. It's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this to her, do this for her, but it's about damn time. And this was the government's responsibility. We have a sacred covenant with our veterans. They go and they serve Canadian interests abroad. They defend liberty. They stand up for freedom. And if they get hurt, it's the sacred covenant is that we take care of them. And this government has failed that every step of the way. The good news is Canadians don't feel the same way as Justin Trudeau about our veterans. All right.
And by the way, that brings us to the other news that Canadian thinks there is not enough pride in country's military.
Yeah, and again, that goes to my point. We don't feel the same way about our military as Justin Trudeau and the Liberals do. So this is a poll from, it's a Post Media Leger poll, which looked at Canadians' pride in the military, treatment of veterans, and Remembrance Day. 62% of poll respondents said the Canadian government does not take enough pride in the country's military. This is a major view across the entire country, although slightly more in British Columbia at 63%. Slightly fewer Atlantic Canadians, that's odd, at 56%. Over the age of 55, so people who might be connected to a veteran, hold this view most strongly with 70%. So those would be the kids of the people who served in World War II, with 70% saying the government doesn't take enough pride in the military. That makes me happy to see that Canadians feel that way, but the fact that we feel that way means the government isn't doing enough.
How do you feel about that?
I feel like that's low, actually. I feel like more people should be outraged. I'm a little disappointed in Alberta. I'll have to drill down on the numbers of that Leger poll, but I'm kind of alarmed that British Columbia expresses the highest sentiment. The Edmonton area in particular, our veterans paid a very high price being deployed to Afghanistan. We forget, we think of like old veterans shuffling off to the cenotaph with their walkers. And most veterans right now are older millennials and Gen X's like me, who my age group that deployed to Afghanistan. And the Edmonton area where the PPCLI was based, I'm a little saddened that British Columbia's numbers are higher than ours.
And I would not be surprised that with time, that number is might increase.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so. We never even told anybody what we're doing here today. I mentioned that it was the Rebel News live stream, but we got straight into Remembrance Day stuff because we think that is the most important thing happening in the country today. But this is where when we talk about the news of the day, completely unscripted. I normally host it on Mondays and Fridays with my friend David Menzies. He is not in today. He's actually at Remembrance Day ceremonies and then covering a Remembrance Day related story, which we will bring to you later tomorrow, probably. And this is a great way for you to get involved in the show. If there's something you want to talk about, if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you for sticking it out there. If that's how you prefer to watch us, I completely understand that. But if you want to support the work that we do and have an opportunity to interact with us as it happens on a topic that you care about, head on over to Rumble. You can leave something called a Rumble rant. That's our paid chat over there. That money goes to us. It helps us keep the lights on because unlike the mainstream media, we'll never take a penny from Justin Trudeau. Your support protects our independence from the government. So if your Rumble rant is over the $5 US cutoff, I'm obligating myself to read it on air. We'll do our best to address it, but don't let that be the bar for entry because, as I said, we appreciate all of your support in whatever amount you want to give it to us as, and we frequently read the chats that fall under the $5 US cutoff. Anyway, now I've got a quick ad read, Olivia, and then do we want to do an ad break and then go into the David Menzies catastrophe of yesterday? Does that work? Okay, we'll just do an ad read and then we'll do a Rebel ad break later. Okay, so this is a message from our friends at Positive. That's PAWSITIVE. If you have a dog, and we've all been there, our pup goes from full of energy to sick and miserable in an instant. I have a nightmare story to tell you guys over the weekend. Halloween candy. My mutt got into a box of Smarties and I had a sick dog all night. Please put the Halloween candy up. Everybody at home, don't have your teenagers leaving mini Smarties out. Your pup will go from full of energy to sick and miserable in an instant at the worst times. Then we're calling vets in the middle of the night or on the weekends. Check for Sheila trying to find a clinic that will take us. It's a terrible way to manage your dog's health, not to mention your stress levels and your monthly budget. That's why people are getting the Pet Emergency Kit by Positive. It contains critical medications and supplies that can not only keep you out of the vet office, but may even save your dog's life. Their kits contain critical medications like activated charcoal. This was, I don't want to say it was a lifesaver because I don't think we were in that territory yet, but very helpful. The activated charcoal, styptic powder, and more. It might save your dog's life. Head on over to positive.com and use the code STUDIO to get 15% off your pet emergency kit. That's positive, PAWSITIVE.com. Activated charcoal. It is your friend if you have teenagers who leave Halloween candy laying out all over the house.
Or just if you have like two crazy dogs like mine that just run all over the place, eat whatever they find in the ground and chase a squirrel and raccoon, you might need it.
Yeah. I was livid with my kids because who's up with the dog? Not them. It's just me. Who's cleaning up the dog puke? Not them, me. And my dog is the kind of dog that you would never know if she's sick because she just is laying there on the floor all day, not doing anything. So I'm like, are you sick or are you just lazy? But no, she was sick. So, we've got a quick we'll read this chat and then we'll go into David Menzies stuff because I know, Alexa, you have a lot to say because you've walked a mile in these shoes, getting roughed up by the police. We've got a chat here from Rabid Roach. I think that's how that's supposed to say.
Yeah.
Subscribe here. I feel that you deserve every dollar I can give you. My thoughts and prayers are with Mr. Menzies as the government does everything it can to silence him. Down with those Islamo-Nazis. Yeah, that's what Mark Levin calls them, and it seems to be about right. You know, when you've got the left running around calling everybody a Nazi, but they're also on the streets marching with Hamas, and you're like, do you know what the Nazis were about? You know who they didn't like, right? So it's a
keep like forgetting something. Okay, that in the past, there were some people trying to get the real Nazi over in the land of Mandate Palestine, or at that point it was like to try to eradicate the Jewish on that land. And so people were wearing the Hamas headband and the people supporting a terrorist organization that want the annihilation of the Israel. It's just, you should probably think twice before showing yourself in the street wearing those headbands. And I think it's why they are covering their whole face, because they don't want to be recognized.
When I see that, I think you may as well just be wearing a swastika. And it's a little bit much for these liberals and these progressives to be saying to any single conservative, oh, you're a fascist, you're a Nazi. And it's like, excuse me, you guys are the ones that believe the same thing about the state of Israel as the Nazis. I think they have a right to exist. And the more I see what's happening in Amsterdam, the more I realize the necessity of a state of Israel where Jews can retreat to for safety. But like the gall of these people to accuse everybody to the right of Chairman Mao of being some kind of Nazi fascist, anybody who's in the convoy a fascist, and it's like, you guys are marching in the streets with the real Nazis, like the real modern day Nazis. And that's, I think, why they don't like David Menzies, because he covers them and shows them in all their disgustingness.
I would love to, but I can't anymore because they are too violent.
Right. Well, we know what these Islamofascists, how they feel about women. And so they'd be happy to punch you out. Let's show David's arrest. He was covering a protest yesterday in Toronto. And we just have to start assuming that when David leaves the house, he's going to be arrested. For once, somebody else had to do the service of calling Lady Menzies to inform her that her husband was once again in jail and that a lawyer had already been deployed to help him. But Toronto police arrested David. We've got people flying the flags of known terrorist entities in our country, which is illegal. They're swarming journalists, intimidating journalists, and you know who the police arrest? The journalists, the 60-plus-year-old journalist with 2 artificial hips. That's who they took away as the threat to public safety. In handcuffs, might I add. Let's watch this.
This is Sharia law, like you're seeing, on the eve of Remembrance Day. These officers are disobeying their oath. They are assaulting me. They are bending the knee to the Islamo-Nazis. My grandfather went to war for more than 5 years fighting the real Nazis. Thank you. I'm kind of glad he's not around now to see these so-called police officers. This is Justin Trudeau's Canada. Did Don Cherry warn us about this 5 years ago?
They're doing to him.
What's wrong with you guys? We told you, who are you guys? What do you mean, you guys? See this? Yeah, my grandfather spent 5 years of his life fighting the Nazis. You think I'm going to bend the knee to the Islamo-Nazis? No. What crime am I committing? No, come on. Enforce the law. Obey your oath, officer. Obey your oath. Yeah. You're enforcing Sharia law. What am I doing here? Huh? Hey. Goodbye. Back to your protest. You're dealing with this. Back to your protest. Everybody back to your protest.
What a win. What a propaganda win for these Hamas jerks. David Menzies is in there being swarmed, bullied, shoved. Who did the cops come and slap in handcuffs? David Menzies. Is he resisting arrest? Does he need to be on the hood of a cop car? In handcuffs? Absolutely not. They didn't arrest a single person who touched him on camera. They've never asked to see evidence of the assault against David. No, David's the criminal here because he's showing the 2-tiered policing, and we can't have that.
And let me be clear, okay? I experienced this kind of action towards journalists, and I was the victim of multiple assault. Police were right there. They didn't act. They didn't do nothing. At least they didn't arrest me, but they didn't protect me. They refused to protect me, and they let them assaulted me multiple times. With David Menzies, they arrested him, okay? Now, those people, not only they feel emboldened to do whatever they want, but it's a kind of sign from the police officer, from the authorities, to give them the okay to continue to do their harassment, their assault, right, and protesting violently and spewing anti-Semitic rhetorics in the middle of the street. So this, by doing that, not only they are going against the criminal code that say that people cannot glorify or giving support to terrorist organization, they also go against the freedom of journalism, the freedom of the press.
Yeah, it's just wild. If people want to help David, as I said, the entire company mobilized yesterday on a Sunday. I guess it sort of happened earlier in the day, but it was morning for me and afternoon for everybody else. I mean, we deployed video editors, web editors, sending emails, calling lawyers, Ezra was dealing with this from abroad, like in Europe. If you want to help us, help David, go to standwithdavid.com. This is just absolutely outrageous. And you know what I really despise is right after this, all the cops are standing there. Well, then, as you said, it emboldens them 100%, because you know what happened? Then they go after Lincoln, our videographer. So Lincoln is standing there post-arrest trying to let everybody know what's going on and still record, like, because he's the one guy left standing. So he's got to let the rest of the company know, like, hey, Ezra, hey, Efron, David Menzies has been arrested. We need to start the machinery working. And what did the Hamas jerks do? Go after Lincoln. Why? Because these jerks know the cops aren't going to do anything either. So they go after Lincoln, and then they go after Karima Syed, I think is how you say her name. They go after her. And why the cops just standing there, their hands in their pockets. This stuff irritates me so much, because there are good, hardworking cops who work in Toronto, and these losers give them such a bad name, and it hurts morale, because the worst part is the good cops and these bad cops make the same amount of money.
Exactly how I feel.
It enrages me. And then you wonder why morale is so low at police services across the country. Calgary Police Service, morale's at an all-time low. They've been complaining about morale in Toronto on their police service since like 2017. It's not getting any better. They've changed 2 police chiefs since then. And why? Because the good cops have to look at their colleagues do this, and then they all have to wear the same uniform. This just disgusts me. These mobs, there's just a mob following the arrest of David Menzies to make sure he gets put in the car. And from what I understand, this mob then went to the police station and harassed David after he was let out. So they went there to continue to harass him. And David's the problem? Are you kidding me?
There is clearly a two-tier policing, but there is the government, the people in charge. Why they are not condemning this? Why they are not saying that you cannot show support to terrorist organizations, you cannot harass people, you cannot assault people while you're protesting? Because when you're protesting and you do this, the protest turn into an illegal protest. And since then, if the protest turn into an illegal protest, the protests need to be dismantled by the authorities.
Yeah, you know what? How quickly they moved on the Freedom Convoy. They deployed all the resources. And I'm not saying we need to invoke the Emergencies Act to deal with these guys, but we can certainly deal with them under the existing laws. They are flying flags of an outlawed terror organization. Hamas is on the public safety outlawed list, along with the likes of the Proud Boys. So take that list for what you will. But these are actual terrorists. They're out there wearing the headbands and flying the flags. Let's do something about it. I'm not sure what FinTrack does around here, except make sure that farmers don't get financing through Farm Credit Canada because they gave $20 to the Freedom Convoy. FinTrack is supposed to track financial crimes and money laundering. Why haven't we figured out where all the money is coming from for these persistent, ongoing pro-Hamas protests? Could it be Iran? That's what the Americans are saying. But Chrystia Freeland, the finance minister who's in charge of these things, she only reserves FinTrack for the likes of the enemies of the Liberal Party and not the enemies of freedom and humanity.
Can we also talk about the fact that not only it was handcuffed, but for a long time, and something happened following the handcuff on David Menzies?
Yeah, do we have Joe Warmington's tweet on this? So we sort of knew about this internally, but Joe Warmington tweeted about it. So we'll just let Joe break the news. Our friend Joe Warmington, who is good friends with David Menzies, by the way, and one of the good guys in the mainstream media, one of the best shoe leather journalists in the entire country. Joe Warmington of the Toronto Sun says, I just heard from David. He's been released from jail. He's on his way to the hospital. And then he tags Myron Demkew, that's the police chief in Toronto, who very clearly wants to be the next Bill Blair. Olivia Chow, that's the mayor who can't keep her panties on. The the geriatric lady mayor of Toronto who just dances scantily clad as mobs of Islamo-Nazis roam the streets of Toronto, and Doug Ford, who seems to be doing absolutely nothing about any of this. You know what I know for sure is if this were happening in Alberta, I know our premier would drop the hammer on these guys, because when they refused to do anything, they didn't actually. I shouldn't say that, because the Calgary police and Edmonton police, as soon as we had those protest encampments pop up at the universities, it was like hours before their stuff was being flung into the garbage by cops, and it was gorgeous and beautiful and made me happy to see. But I think it's because our police services know that you've got a public safety minister in Mike Ellis in Alberta and our premier Danielle Smith, who would stand up and defend the cops for doing the right thing. But let's go back to the tweet there. He said he's headed to the hospital as a result of cuts from the handcuffs. So he sat in those handcuffs for 3 hours that we know of that were too tight, and they couldn't get him off. 6 Toronto firefighters had to use a special drill to get them off, and he had to go to the hospital from sparks landing on his skin. Hot metal landing on his skin. A lot of public sector heroes working on David Menzies' arrest and physical punishment today. It's disgusting. We will sue them into the dirt, into the dust. There's no reason why he was in handcuffs at all. There was no reason why he should have been arrested and detained at all. He was the victim in that altercation. He wasn't the instigator. He was the victim. Then they take him away in handcuffs, then can't get the damn things off, have to cut them off. And then they don't even get him medical care. He has to go by himself to the hospital. So they harm him in custody, and he's got to get himself medical care after the fact.
Imagine for 1 second that it was a journalist from CBC or another like corporate media.
Yeah. Forget it. Forget it. They wouldn't be arrested. They wouldn't be hassled. They'd have a ring of police standing around them so they can walk through and report. Not our guy. The only ring of police that come is to the one to take him away and throw him in the back of a cop car in handcuffs. I mean, I can't believe that. Let's concede that maybe the handcuffs that were too tight and faulty were an accident. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm very suspicious. I'm in Alex Jones territory on that. But even if it were an accident, you burn him trying to get the damn things off him, and then you're like, okay, David, have a good one. They don't take him to the hospital. He's got burns from hot metal on his hands, and you don't take him to the hospital? What is wrong with you people? You harmed him in custody. He was hurt in custody.
Don't forget that I got shot in my legs,
yes.
point blank, and they never asked me if I needed help for going to the hospital.
Oh, as egregious as that was, you weren't in custody, right?
Yeah,
David
exactly.
was in custody. That's like a jail guard beats you, and then they just don't get you help. Like, if you are in the custody of the police and you get hurt, they have to get you help. And they didn't do that.
No, they hurt him.
They hurt him. Anyways, we are going to sue the cops into the dirt. And they could not have it coming more than they do right now. And if you want to help, please go to standwithdavid.com. We don't take money from Justin Trudeau. We don't take money from Doug Ford. We don't take money from Olivia Chow. And you can see that all of them are failing the institution of journalism and freedom and free speech in this country. And David Menzies, David himself is the battleground for the free press right now. Look at this mob. And they're like, yeah, you know who the problem is? It's the guy in the hat. Despicable. I could talk about this all day because it makes me mad. But I know we have other things to talk about. I'm just so mad because and you know this to be true, Olivia, or Alexa, and Olivia too. I guess you obviously you know this to be true. David Menzies is even nicer in person. He's nicer and sweeter and kinder in person, and and he's got such a lovely, strong, obviously, wife, and I know he's very proud of his boys. This is a good man, and they're treating him like public enemy number one. It is atrocious. But yet, every week, David Menzies puts on that stupid hat and he goes to the protest and does the news, and he won't be intimidated away from it. And it just makes me sick how they treat him.
So imagine what they can do to women if they do that for men. I just imagine that going there, I would be destroyed right away.
Yeah.
And you too, Sheila.
Yeah. I mean, luckily it's a different story here in Alberta. I think things are way different here in Alberta than they are in other parts of the country.
How come the East Coast is so extreme?
I don't know. It's a different culture. When they say Quebec is a distinct culture. I agree. I completely agree. You're very different than the rest of the country, but so are we on the prairies. And that's why we get very prickly, because for us, we are more culturally compatible with our friends to the south, with our American friends, than we are a lot of times with people in Toronto, with people in, Montreal. You may as well be from a different country than us. Completely.
Don't make us separate. If we separate one day, I'm leaving. I'm not staying here. Please.
I'll stamp your passport as you become a refugee to the good province of Alberta. Okay, we've got a quick ad read, then we'll go into a Rebel News break, and then we've got some other things happening around the world besides David Menzies getting arrested and Remembrance Day. Randy Boissonneau, the lone Liberal MP from Edmonton, is in more trouble, if you can believe that. Is it Randy or is it the other Randy? We've got a Randy St. Marie problem happening, and I love the Randy Boissonneau saga. It's just that it's costing Canadian taxpayers a lot of money, so I shouldn't be that enthused about bad things happening to bad people. But anyway, let's read this, and then we'll go into the ad break. It's from Rumble Premium. And this is a sponsorship from Rumble, and it's one that's incredibly important to the survival of Rumble, but not just Rumble, us here at Rebel News, because Rumble gives us a platform to speak the truth to you, because as you know, YouTube is a censorship platform. And when Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions on COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they fell to pressure from the Biden and Harris administration. Rumble did not. They held the line. They are attacked daily for giving us a voice to talk to you. They are attacked in corporate media. They are attacked by governments like France. They are attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove free speech. Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers, as they don't get much of it. Watching our show right now on Rumble is the most they can ask from you. But if you really believe in this fight, and if you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering 10% off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. Go to rumble.com/premium. Use the promo code STUDIO. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we're just happy if you watch us on Rumble. I canceled my YouTube Premium subscription and applied it to Rumble Premium out of spite.
And by the way, I keep saying that without freedom of speech, you don't have a democracy. And my favorite quote is, freedom is never more than one generation away.
That's a Ronald Reagan quote.
Yeah, I like it. It's my favorite one. I think it's what really represents where we are at today.
He was such a lovely orator, and he is the man who originated the Make America Great Again. slogan. Okay, let's hit a Rebel News ad break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the other things, especially Randy Boissonneau. I love how crooked he is and how it's all coming to light. I love it.
Your grandpa was a great man. He fought for the freedoms and rights you hold in your hand. Never take them for granted. Keep your freedom passport close. Remember, son, Grandpa did this for you. Know your rights. Know your freedoms. Get your freedom passport today.
Why should you join Canada's National Firearms Association? We currently have one of the most aggressively anti-firearm governments in our nation's history, promoting fear and placing blame like never before. Our rights, freedoms, culture, and heritage, it's all on the line. But we are fighting back, and there is strength in numbers. We work within the law to change the law, to defend competitors, hunters, collectors, and other law-abiding firearms owners. We can get through this. We've done it before, and we'll do it again, if you are with us. Canada's National Firearms Association. Freedom, safety, responsibility.
Quality of life matters. Affording groceries and the basics matters. Ottawa has a different agenda. Their energy production cap will cut your family's budget, which means less money in your wallet. We say let common sense prevail. Tell the feds at scrapthecap.ca.
All right. Let's get into
your favorite topic, Randy Boissonneau.
Randy Boissonneau. You know, for those of you who don't know, I'll do a quick update on who and what Randy Boissonneau is. So Randy Boissonneau is the Liberal MP in Edmonton Centre. And the reason he's the Liberal MP there is thanks to a vote split between the PPC at the time and the Conservatives. And it was just enough to let Randy come up. And now he's acting like, I guess he technically did win the riding fair and square. That's the rules of parliamentary democracy. But he always acts like he's got a big mandate to be like the Liberal minister in Alberta. And he's the jobs minister. And he was recently appointed the minister in charge of reconstruction of Jasper. And here's why Randy Boissonneau is on my radar. Well, for a couple of different reasons. So Randy Boissonneau, there's a town of Westlock just north of Edmonton, about an hour. It's a farming community. They decided they weren't going to have the rainbow sidewalks in their town anymore. And the Liberals from Edmonton all got up in arms, and the NDPers in Edmonton got all up in arms, and they came and sort of colonized this small town. And they were like, no, you guys are a bunch of farming bigots, and we're going to make sure that you have the rainbow sidewalk. Well, the town voted out the sidewalks and basically said, no, you can only have black and white sidewalks. Sidewalks are not political here. Randy Boissonneau was one of the ministers that came to colonize the small town, and they're like, get out of here. What are you doing here? Get back to Edmonton. So that's why I don't like Randy. He doesn't know how to mind his own business. He thinks that everybody in the province should be like Edmonton Centre when the majority of the people are like Westlock. Okay. So then it comes out that Randy Boissonneau, back before he was in politics in 2019, 2020, because he was elected in 2021, 2020, he founds a PPE import business with some alien-looking man named Steven Anderson. Steven Anderson, I say this all the time, he is what humanity will evolve to if we eat bugs and the soy. Look it. This is what low testosterone levels and bad diet will do to humans in several thousand years. That's what we're all going to look like. You can't really tell if he's a guy or a dude or a girl, and that's kind of how he likes it. He wears women's shoes, like high heels, and his fingernails are painted. I'm like, what am I looking at? Anyways, Randy Boissonneau founds a PPE import company with him that is now embroiled in fraud, several fraud cases against the company, taking deposits for PPE materials that were never delivered. That's in 2020. Then Randy becomes MP in 2021. Well, you're not allowed to do business dealings, Randy. So Randy says, okay, I'm stepping back from being in charge of the company, even though I own 50% of it. Well, because, of course, how can you be an MP voting on pandemic lockdown restrictions while running a PPE company? It's almost like you could vote yourself into wealth, right? And so he said, oh, I wasn't running it. But then the Conservatives get their hands on emails of Stephen Anderson, his alien-looking partner, saying, we've got Randy's making deals, and Randy's in Vancouver right now, or Randy's on the West Coast. And so they have evidence of Randy being intrinsically involved in the day-to-day operations of the company, while Randy Boissonnault was actually on the West Coast for a cabinet meeting, for a cabinet caucus retreat. So we've got Randy on the West Coast, and we've got Randy Boissonnault on the West Coast at the exact same time. Well, they say, no, we mean a different Randy. It's a different Randy who works at the company, except they've never produced. Randy, not exactly a popular name. They never produced the other Randy. Then they said, oh, it wasn't Randy. It was an autocorrect mistake. When they couldn't produce the other Randy, then it's like, oh no, it was my iPhone just being crazy. But it never once did they fix the autocorrect. They did it 9 times, and everybody seemed to know in the chain of communications that whether they were actually talking about Randy. So now Randy Boissonnault is accused of claiming, I don't know how many scandals this guy can be involved in at once. Simultaneously, we have this procurement scandal happening in Canadian politics, where companies who pretend to be Indigenous get preferential treatment in the procurement queue, as in you get preferential contracts because you are an Indigenous owned and operated company. We saw this in Arrive Scam. A company called Dalian, a 2-man operation, was getting money as part of Arrive Scam contracting when we're not sure anybody there is actually Indigenous. And then now it turns out Randy Boissonnault's company was getting preferential contracts. I think it was from Elections Canada, because it was Indigenous owned and operated. Randy's not Indigenous. So let's read the statement from Randy, and then let's go into what the Conservatives had to say about him. Randy now is distancing himself from Stephen Anderson, his scary partner, who actually used to coach skating. And so there was a time where he was remotely normal, but then I think at some point he started turning into the alien man. And I can't imagine sending my kid, like my young hockey player, to learn skating, like power skating from him. Anyway, just go down that in Instagram hole, because I am obsessed with the Randy Boissonnault story. Anyways, Randy Boissonnault. It has become apparent that my former business partner, Stephen Anderson, has conducted himself in an unacceptable manner. The evidence clearly indicates Mr. Anderson, sure, used my name without my consent to advance his personal interests repeatedly, including in the years after our work together had concluded. I also did not consent to Mr. Anderson making any false representations to portray Global Health Imports, that's the company GHI, as an Indigenous-owned company, nor would I. Well, where would he get that idea, Randy? Where? There's a long history of non-Indigenous individuals claiming status to access programs and such actions are wrong and deeply hurtful to Indigenous people. Okay, but where would he get the idea that you're Indigenous, Randy? Let's keep going. With regard to my own heritage, the family into which I was adopted has Indigenous ancestry, and my adopted mother and brother both being status Métis. I myself do not have status. That's where they got this idea, the scam. Well, you're adopted into an Indigenous family, so that's close enough. Though I have participated in Indigenous caucus as an ally throughout my time as MP, I regret my error in judgment in having gone into business with Mr. Anderson. Yeah, I bet you do. You next time pick a better liar, Randy, to go into business with. Let's
easy to try to wash his hand of any involvement with that and just put the other person under the bus. I just hope that there will be more investigation into what happened. I
want to see everybody's emails. And, that's how they got. So there's another scandal on the side of this. So Randy Boissonneau did declare his ownership in Global Health Imports to the ethics commissioner. The ethics commissioner really didn't investigate. I think we have a terrible ethics commissioner, by the way, and I'll say this publicly. If you're watching me, Mr. Ethics Commissioner, I forget his name, Conrad von Finkenstein. If you're watching, I think you're terrible. Because every time somebody's like, what about this ethics scandal? He's like, what do you want me to do around here? Investigate? Yeah, I'm pretty sure yes. Yes, I believe we do. He said that that Randy Boissonneau gave him assurances that he was not involved in the dealings of the company. And so he was like, yep, rubber stamp, you're okay. Then he says, I examined records provided by Randy Boissonneau that showed that he didn't have any communications regarding the business dealings. And then so they ask him like how many days worth of communications you looked at. And he's like, I don't know, but like 3 days, 4 days. And the conservatives are like, if you went like 2 days further, you would have found the 9 Randy text messages. It's like, oh, well, I didn't look at that. What do you want me to do? Investigate? Yep, exactly. And this happens over and over again. He's the guy who says there's no ethics problems down at the Green Slush Fund. We investigated, we found nothing. This like, what are you talking about? Like Stephen Guilbeault's company got $200 million or something like that. So anyways, I think it's going to be 2 years after Justin Trudeau's gone for us to get to the bottom of just the amount of corruption before we even start to do anything about it. Like, I just think to open up the books, it's going to take 2 years just to find it all. And then start the firings and the criminal trials. But anyways, Dane Lloyd, Conservative MP from Edmonton area, west of the city. He sort of breaks it down pretty well.
But we see if it will ever happen, because you know what it's always happening. It's just we do investigation and finally just like boop, nothing.
Yeah. Well, when you see like the ethics commissioner, you're like, oh, it's no wonder these guys think they can get away with everything. This guy is like a deputy dog. Like it's just like he literally says, what do you want me to do? Investigate? And the conservatives are like, yeah, exactly. You are the ethics commissioner. He's like, well, I didn't get any complaints. Well, who's going to complain? If you don't know that there's corruption, how are you going to get a complaint? You're supposed to go looking for the corruption. Anyway, let's listen to Dane Lloyd.
Mr. Speaker, Indigenous people are outraged that government contracts meant for Indigenous businesses are being scooped up by shady companies with no Indigenous connection. Today, we learned that the Minister of Employment's fraud-ridden company, Global Health Imports, claimed to be Indigenous in order to try and secure millions in lucrative government contracts. Now, this all happened while the Minister of Employment was actively running the company. It's time to end the charade. When will the minister admit that he is the real Randy and acknowledge that it's wrong to falsely claim Indigenous heritage and take contracts meant for Indigenous peoples and resign?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Procurement Services.
Speaker, we're taking every effort to ensure that Indigenous people are properly associated with the contracts that are procured. That's why we've established the very motion that's going forward. Members opposite want to criticize and be critical of the program, but it's essential to ensure that Indigenous people have the right, have the ability for economic success and integration so that they too can succeed, and that we understand that those on the Indigenous list are managed appropriately, and the procurement process is also taking transparent measures forward.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, but really not long time ago, when I went to an event where there were special prize for Indigenous, they literally say to me that anyone who identify as can just claim to be. Like, this is actually an insult for them, and that just happened too. So at the end of the day, they are the one responsible, the liberals, for what they are doing right now.
Well, and look at this. Not in a real company, not only would Randy resign, he would probably be in jail. But this is Justin Trudeau's Liberals, and so ethics doesn't really matter there. But if he were in the private sector, there would be serious police investigation happening here just on the fraud stuff alone. But the procurement, like the misleading to get preferential procurement, I mean, that's wild. But not only does he not have to resign, he got a promotion. He is now the Liberal minister in charge of the Jasper rebuild. Which means like dozens of
don't make me go off about what happened in Jasper, and especially with the green slush fund corruption that is happening over there.
Oh, it's just crazy. He is like it. I don't know how you can be involved in not the first part of the Randy Boissonneau scandal should have been enough to make sure that he is never in charge of something. If they were smart, they would have just sort of shuffled him to the side. If the Liberals were smart, they would have said, you know what? We are going to appoint a conservative in charge of Jasper Rebuild. Make them like a special advisory panel in charge of Jasper Rebuild or something, because Randy's going to lose his seat. Like he's going to lose his seat in the middle of the Jasper Rebuild. Geez, what? I don't know. We could show Garnett's clip on this, but we don't need to. I mean, that's enough. That's enough of me talking about Randy. Maybe the world doesn't find him as interesting and his scandals as I do.
By the way, did you ever had like any follow back about the Circle Capital controversy?
No, not really. No, I think Guilbeault, I believe, has been called back to testify on it. So that's good, because his business partner, or the lady who I guess hired him as a lobbyist back in the day and then gave him his shares as payment, she was a real piece of work. Like, she was prickly. She's like, how dare you question me? I think you're questioning me because I'm an environmentalist, I'm a woman, and I'm from Quebec. And I'm like, no. None of those things. I don't care about any of those things. I only care insofar as you were sitting on the green slush fund voting to give yourself money. And she's like, I left the room. So this is how it went. Okay, I'm leaving the room. You guys go ahead and vote to give me money, and then I'll come back in and then vote to give you guys money. That's how it happened down there. It was just a big money laundering scandal, and Canadians are on the hook for it. I didn't vote. I stepped out of the room. So your friends voted to give you money, and then you came in and then voted to give your friends money. Okay, I see how that works.
Oh, and by the way, to all MP that are watching right now, switching to French to try to avoid the question because you think that nobody will follow. Some people understand both language.
Yeah, I listen to the translation, although the translators are quite frequently just, I'd almost rather muddle my way through French than listen to those translators, but I appreciate it. Let's go to this one thing that's happening in Alberta. I know we're running out of time, and I've got to film the gun show today because I am on a special mission for the next 2.5 days. Kids in Alberta, I'm going to congratulate the boss on this. Mm-hmm. They mentioned it back in April. I didn't realize it made its way into the curriculum, but this is the Ezra Levant effect. Anybody who talks about Alberta's oil in this way, whether you like him or you hate him, Ezra gave you this. He gave you this argument from his book, Ethical Oil, and this is happening in Alberta right now. And the left is losing its ever-loving mind because they want us to be ashamed and apologize. They want the kids at school to be ashamed of their mommies and daddies' jobs. Kids in Alberta to learn Alberta is the most ethical producer of oil in the world in school. A curriculum framework that calls on teachers to promote Alberta's oil and gas industry to school children was quietly published months ago to the surprise of education experts and the opposition. Yeah, I don't care if the NDP are mad. The document includes a directive from the Minister of Education, Dimitrios Nikolaidis, to teach K-12 students about Alberta's reputation as the most ethical producer of oil in the world and the importance of natural resources in enabling and sustaining Alberta's society and Albertans' quality of life. I love this. And of course, the activist teachers are mad. And I love it because these are the same people who want to teach children the unscientific nonsense that boys can be girls and girls can be boys, and it doesn't matter which washroom you use. But if you tell them, you activist teachers are paid through oil and gas royalties, they don't want to hear it because they just want to teach you that your mommies and daddies' jobs are ruining the planet.
You know what? I really appreciate Donald Trump. He went out and saying that he's going to reform the education system, and that all the bullshit around gender identity, pronoun, and everything will be out of school. What we should do too in Canada, because during this time in Quebec, while we terrify the children about the pipeline and about natural resources, we teach them how they can be everything they want to be. Like if you want to be a horse or something, or like if you want to be, neither a girl or a boy, while this is actually having a problem, like a mental problem.
Yeah. This is getting back to basics in Alberta. Like, look, we're going to head into a booming economy. We're already doing well here in Alberta with Donald Trump in the White House. Oh, it's going to be a time like I haven't felt in a very long time. It's going to be one of those times like we talk about, like, oh, I'll buy that in the next oil boom. Next oil boom, we'll buy that. It's coming. It's coming. And I can't wait for it. And we're going to need a lot of geophysicists and pipeline engineers and welders and millwrights and steam fitters and pipe fitters and rig hands and directional drillers, truckers, logistics experts. We're going to need a lot of those people coming. They can't all be feminist basket weavers graduating from the humanities in the University of Alberta. We need people to go to technical schools, trade schools. We need people who are trained at NFORM. SAIT, NATE, we need those people. And they need to start learning about the value of their future career early. They need to not be ashamed that they're going into oil and gas and mining. When we were, where were we? I was in BC. I was with Lyndon, actually. And we stopped to let Lyndon chain smoke. And there was a man who was from Australia, and he pulled up, and we're just sort of talking to him, whatever. And we said, oh, what are you doing here? And he said, oh, I'm looking for a spot for a new, head office for a company. We said, oh, what do you do? And he goes, I'm in mining equipment. And you could tell he said it kind of sheepishly. And I was like, right on, let's talk about mining equipment. How big are the tires on those bad boys? Like, I was really excited. And he was sort of taken aback about how friendly we were to oil and gas and mining. And he sort of led with his chin thinking, oh, nobody's going to like it. And I'm like, no, it's a big economy driver. Good for you. I'm to find out that, oh, you're expanding your operations into Canada. I'm like, that's good news for both of us, isn't it? And I don't like people to have that attitude. Natural resources are life-giving, life-affirming, and we are blessed with them, and we should be proud of it. And yet these teachers' organizations are like, no, bad. It's gross, bad.
By the way, shout out to that guy in Quebec who were wearing the shirt, "Make oil and gas great again."
Yes.
That is something that is crazy, especially in Quebec, while our premier have banned the extraction, exploration of natural resources. So, yeah, I think more people should wear this kind of shirt.
Yeah, I wish Quebecers understood. The restrictions on fracking there are leaving you poor. Questair, Michael Binion, he has been pushing for exploration there for ages, exploration and extraction there for ages, because it will leave for clean, reliable natural gas in Quebec. And apparently your premier would rather import it than allow it to go forward.
Because he wants to be the first one in the lowest emissions, the green province around the world, while in the same time, it's just because your emission is in other country, and as the money of the industry is outside of our province, instead of making us rich, you make other places that have less ethic on extraction rich. So at the end of the day, our premier, by the way, who actually flipped completely the opposite while he did write a book about how to make Quebec prosperous by extracting our natural resources, got elected and banned it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and just import from Pennsylvania. Those are Pennsylvania jobs that could be Quebec jobs, but yeah, that's fine. I'll just keep sending you guys money. It's okay. Again, you're not against oil and gas money, right? You just want mine. That's all. Let's go into what Ezra was up to. And this is, I got to tell you, I'm not angling for a raise, but I want to tell you that while we were dealing with David Menzies being arrested and held in handcuffs for 3 hours that nobody could get off his wrists, Ezra was dealing with it from Amsterdam. So he's there to report on the riots against Jews there. It broke out after a soccer match a few days ago, and it is still ongoing. It's a pogrom in the country where Anne Frank was. And I saw the King of Holland called and apologized, I think wasn't to the president of Israel, wasn't the prime minister, called and apologized, said, we failed the Jews before, we're failing you again. So Ezra was there. He said white Dutch leftists acting as rioters' lawyers, trying to whitewash they did with political respectability. The bloodthirsty mob was more honest. So let's just see some of Ezra's reports from on the ground.
There's some people resisting, but not very much. A vehicle is coming up, but we don't want to get any closer. This is about as close as you can get without being pushed by a baton. In fact, I think we're the only journalists left on the scene. It's very interesting to see the back of his sheet.
Hamas is part of the people, so you cannot destroy Hamas because it's part of the people.
So you support Hamas?
I support, you know what? The Dutch has been occupied for 4 years here by the Germans.
Almost 5, yeah.
Yeah, almost 5, let's say 5 years. When
looks like you're occupied by the Nazis again, sister.
And the occupation would have stayed on for 70 years or more, then we also would have to fight against the Germans.
So the Jews are like the Nazis, is what you're saying in your analogy. Well, we're back at the Central Plaza of Amsterdam. When we were here a few hours ago, we counted a half a dozen police vans and police in small groups. I presumed that the excitement was over, but in fact, today a pro-Hamas protest is happening. As you can see, there are now dozens of police vehicles and riot police with those batons, shields, helmets, and visors. They're forming a line to block additional people from joining the pro-Hamas protest. You can't see them, but you can hear them. It's a small group that is meeting, they say, in defiance of the government. Because of the riots 2 days ago, and I think because of, frankly, the shock by the entire establishment from the king on down, they did not give a permit to the pro-Hamas protesters that they normally do. Nonetheless, they chose to rally in defiance of that lack of legal sanction. Police evidently seem to be allowing the protests to continue, but have formed literally a human wall, stopping new people from joining. I should say, I would call it peaceful, even though it's heavily armed, batons, shields, helmets, etc. I see no fisticuffs. There's no opposing force. The Israeli football fans who were here on Thursday have obviously long since gone home. A statement by the pro-Hamas side said they're not going to allow the weaponization of anti-Semitism, they say. In other words, the fact that there was an anti-Semitic pogrom on Thursday won't stop the pro-Hamas folks from protesting.
It was anti-Israeli.
Well, what's the difference?
There's a big difference.
And what is the difference?
Israel is a state that creates extremely aggressivity and violence and genocide, while Jewish people as me does not do it. And the Israeli claims the Judaism, which is not true. There's a lot of Jewish people who's looking for peace.
Well, looking for peace, I agree with you that there's a lot of Israelis who are looking for peace, but you can't.
I'm Jewish and I'm ex-Israeli, and I'm totally don't agree that it's the same thing.
Well, that would be like saying, I love French people, I just hate France.
No.
I love Italian people, I hate Italy.
Manipulate what I said.
What do you
There's
say?
a lot of Jewish people who don't recognize themselves in Israel.
Well, they're self-hating Jews, and you seem like one of them.
I'm Jewish. I'm putting Shabbat every day, and I go to the synagogue. I'm not self-hating Jews. I love Jewish so much that it's really.
Well, how can you be a Jew without Zionism? Zionism's the core of Judaism.
No, Zionists support other things except Judaism. Judaism exists everywhere. Zionism exists in Israel, not in our name. Yeah.
I think
want to talk to you. You're so manipulative.
You came up to me to speak to me, so I think you do want to talk.
You talk now, rebel. To which newspaper do you talk?
I don't even know what a newspaper is. I'm not of your vintage.
No, sorry.
Okay, see you later.
Yeah, I think that's good.
First,
Ezra's so funny.
First of all, okay,
Yeah.
I saw a lot of things on the net. I read a lot of things about what happened in Amsterdam, and the people who claim that it was the Israeli hooligan who were irrespectful, spewing hate and removing Palestinian flag. I'm sorry, you are trampling Israeli flag for more than a year. You're spewing anti-Semitic rhetoric every single almost weekend everywhere in the world against Jewish. What they react from, they never beat it up, none of you, but you turn yourself using violence, beating up any kind of Jewish. And after that, you say you claim that it is over Israeli and not Jewish people. Wait a minute, what you're saying is contradictory. You are getting over any Jewish people in Amsterdam, beating them up, letting them on the ground. A lot of them have been injured. This is not about Israel. This is about Jewish people.
Well, and that's why that lady wanted to not talk to Ezra anymore. As soon as he pointed out, you can't say you love Italians but hate Italy, or you love the French but hate France. It's part of their identity. And that one lady off the top, what she said was so outrageous. We were occupied by the Nazis. And so in her analogy, Ezra was right to tell her, in your analogy right now, you realize you're calling the Israelis in their indigenous ancestral homeland the occupiers. And as she said that, I thought, you know what? You guys are being occupied again. You just don't realize it. You are, once again, Dutch, you are somewhat being occupied once again by this fascist Nazi ideology. You just don't realize where it's coming from.
But most of the people are not well informed. Most of the people, when you ask them like which river, which sea we are talking about from the river
they
to
have
the
no
sea,
idea.
they have no idea. And so I would say people, instead of like spewing hatred against each other, just protest on your side and just be peaceful, but they can't. Like, seriously, the people who are anti-Israel, anti-Jewish people, they can't contain themselves.
No.
And we see it in the streets since more than a year now. When will be the end?
Well, that's because the core of their ideology is intifada, right? The core of their ideology is a violent anti-Semitic uprising, an ethnic cleansing through violence. That's the core of their identity. So asking them to behave at a protest is counter to the ethos of their entire movement, which is a violent, ethnically cleansed uprising. So anyways, let's wrap the show, because as I said, I'm on special mission for a couple of days, so I have to get 3 days worth counting today, 3 days worth of work done today. What remains of today. So I'm going to do my best and then prepare myself for my special mission, because I want to make sure I don't have a lot of time to get it wrong while I'm there. So I have to make sure I get it right. But stay tuned for that. If you want to support Ezra's journalism while he was in the Netherlands, it's AmsterdamRiots.com. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah. Yes. Where is it? Yes, it's amsterdamriots.com if you want to support independent journalism from on the ground in the Netherlands, from literally right behind a police line, telling you the truth. So amsterdamriots.com. I think that's the show. Or
I just want to warn everybody that Christmas is coming, and we have a lot of merch, as one that I'm wearing just right there.
I love that shirt. I have it.
So we have so much merch. I suggest you to go over, and during the time that you are doing your gift, you are supporting our journalism.
Yes. And we're adding new stuff there all the time. Every time somebody says something funny at the company, we're like, hey, put that on a shirt, put that on a shirt. So anyway, there's Alexis, there's the blackface, Big Trudy. And if you want to show your support for Alexa, you can use her promo code. It's Alexa10, I believe.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Alexa, thanks for subbing in for David today. I know I did too much talking, but I thank you for that. I like to take the opportunity when David isn't here to get a word in edgewise. So thank you for bearing with me. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to everybody who works behind the scenes at Rebel News to put the show together so that it's there whenever you want to watch it, whenever you want to click on it. And I ask you kindly to share it to help us get around Justin Trudeau's intense social media censorship and the censorship of big tech companies. Thanks to everybody who watches the show, pitched in a little bit to keep the lights on here. Again, special thanks to Alexa for letting me just talk the whole time. And as David Menzies always says, stay safe and stay sane.
This morning, Canadians are gathering at cenotaphs and memorials throughout our country. Others are watching at home or online. No matter where, all are paying respects to the 120,000 brave men and women who have sacrificed their lives for us in war and in military operations at home and overseas. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Air Force. Over 17,000 members died during the Second World War alone. We also mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day, arguably a turning point during the Second World War, and a conflict during which over 1,000 Canadians gave their lives in service to our country. We pause today to reflect upon the service and sacrifice of our troops in battles, conflicts, and missions throughout our military heritage. We stand today to honor, thank, and remember all those who have fallen in service to Canada. We renew our pledge to never forget.